Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for being patient for this one. I've been super excited to get it done. I'm really happy to say that today we're checking out Rocks by Primal Scream. So let's start by having a look at the introduction, and this is a really fun one to play. We're going to be based around an A rock riff, and it just sounds like this. So we're going to be starting with that A5 chord or power chord. We're going to be down at the 2nd fret. We're going to have our open A string, 2nd fret of our D and 2nd fret of our G. We're going to play that once and then we're going to go to play it again, but this time we're going to bring our ring finger onto the 4th fret of our D. And when we do that, we're going to very quickly mute it afterwards. We're then going to go back to our A5 chord, play that again. And again, for a second time, bring on our ring finger to the 4th fret. This time, we're not going to mute it. We're then going to take that off, and then we're going to go into a G chord. And notice this time how I'm going to mute the A string. And we're going to do a very similar thing with the next chord. We're going to go into a D. But we're going to be muting the E string as well. So if you'll notice there, we're not having any tonality in either of those chords, so we're not making them major or minor, we're just keeping them very neutral. Put that all together and we get this. There's also going to be a second guitar which features in the introduction, and it plays a nice simple part, and if you've got the spare guitar player, it's a great idea to add in. It just goes like this. So we've got a bit of a stretch here. We're going to be at the 2nd fret of our G, but we're also going to stretch our pinky out to our 5th fret of our B and E strings. To get ourselves started, we're going to do a little string rake, so the strings are going to be muted, and then we're going to play it on. We're then going to quickly mute that and do another 2 string rakes, and then play it again, but for a bit longer. And that sounds like this. I'll do that again. And one more time. We're then going to pause for a moment and then play it another 2 times, and that sounds like this. And to finish this off, we're then going to do a little descending run to take us round again, which goes from the 3rd fret of the A to the 2nd and then open. Together they sound like this. You can also hear this after the first chorus as well. So we're now going to move on into the verses, and again we're going to be playing an A-based rock riff. It just sounds like this. So we're going to start with our A5 chord then. We're going to play it once and then pause. We're then going to go over to our 3rd fret of our A and then hammer onto our 4th and then play another A5 chord and pause once again. It sounds like this. We're then going to play our A5 chord again and go into a G and then a D. So far it should sound like this. We're then going to go around the sequence again, going straight back to our A5 chord, and this time we're immediately going to play a riff. It just sounds like this. So we're going to play the A, and then put our 4th fret of our D on, and then again 2nd to 4th, and then play the A5 chord again and let that one ring out for a moment and pause it. In context, it sounds like this so far. We're then going to go back to a familiar riff, going from the 3rd of the A to the 4th, and back to our A5 chord and pausing once again. We're then going to play the A chord again, going into a G and a D. So now we've got 2 times completed on our sequence there. I'll just play that through. We're then going to go back to our A chord for a final time, and then we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to put on our middle finger to our 3rd fret of our B and also our ring finger back to our 4th of our D there. And we're going to play that twice and then take it off again. Together, the verses should sound like this. Moving on into the pre-chorus, we've got another fun part to play. This time we're going to add in one extra chord, but again it's nice and simple. We're just adding in an E chord, and then the other chords are going to be a G, A, back to our E, G, and then D. It should sound like this. So you probably noticed there I did a little riff when we got to the A chord. Let's just review that. So we're going to play our A rock chord twice, and then we're going to go 3rd to 4th on the A, and then we're going to go back to our A5 chord. We're going to play that another 2 times, but this time round we're going to make sure it's a bit more percussive. And then we're going to repeat our riff again, 3rd to 4th on the A to our A rock chord, and then again 3rd to 4 back to our A rock chord. The second guitar is going to come back in for the pre-chorus as well, and it just sounds like this. So for this we're going to be up at the 9th fret of our D, G and B strings bar to begin with. And this is going to imply an E chord. I'm just missing out the root there. And we're going to do a bit of an extension if you like, keeping it nice and simple. We're going to bring in our middle finger to the 10th fret of our B and our ring finger to the 11th fret of our D. So we're going to play it off, and then on twice, and then off again. We're then going to move that up to the 12th fret to imply a bit of a G chord and do the same thing. So we've got our middle finger coming to the 13th fret there of the B and our ring finger to the 14th of the D. We're then going to go down to our A chord, let that one ring out. And then we're going to go around again. And then we're going to go down to a D chord, whichever you prefer. And we're going to play this riff afterwards. So we're going to get our major third in there, going from the 10th fret of our G to the 11th, and then the 10th fret of the B. Notice the rhythm on that one as well. I'll just play that one more time. It should sound like this. So we're now going to move on into the chorus guitar, and there's not too much to teach now, it's nice and fun. Again, we're going to be playing our A chord, G chord and D chord, and it should just sound like this. So we're starting with our A rock chord. Then we're bringing on our sort of 4th fret of our D with our ring finger, playing that twice. Taking it off again, we're then going to move into our G. And the only interesting thing we're going to do now is we're going to change the fingering of D to fit in a little riff. So we're going to use our index finger on the 2nd fret of our G and our middle finger this time for the 3rd fret of our B now. And that's because we want to fit this riff in. So I'm using my ring finger here to squeeze and fit in at the 3rd fret of our D, going to our 4th, and then taking it off again. So I'm going to start by playing it once, and then play it another 2 times afterwards. And in context, it should sound like this. Get your rocks up, honey, shake it out now, get 'em up downtown. Get your rocks up, honey, shake it out now, get 'em up downtown. If you want to as well, we can add in a secondary guitar for the chorus again, going from the A chord, adding in our extension, including our 3rd fret of our B there. Then taking it up to our 12th fret, just like how we did before. And then back into our D chord with the riff. Should just sound like this. Get your Right, so we've now arrived at the guitar solo, and we're just going to be breaking this down into a few segments, and we're going to start with phrase number 1, and it just sounds like this. So we're based around our A minor pentatonic. We're going to be at the 7th fret of our D to start. I should also mention that when I'm playing this, we're going to be doing a lot of downstrokes because we really want to dig into some of those notes. Anyway, so like I said, we're going to be starting at the 7th fret of our D. We're going to slide into that one. We're then going to play the 5th fret of our G. We're then going to go back to the 7th fret of our D. We're then going to go 5 to 7 on the G, and then 5 to 7 on the D. So that's the simplest way of playing it. If you want to, I quite like to double up some of the notes. So when we play the 5th fret of the G, instead of just playing that, sometimes I like to add in the 5th of the B as well. And the same thing on the D string as well. Instead of just playing that, I like to add in the 5th fret of the G as well, and that just sounds like this. So you can mix and match some of those parts. However which way round you want to do it. Moving from phrase number 1 into phrase number 2, it should just sound like this. So we're going to start by once again sliding into the 7th fret of our D. We're then going to play the 5th of the G, or if you want to, add in the 5th of the B as well. And then we're going to go back to our root, 7th fret of our D. And then we're very quickly going to move our middle and ring finger over to the 7th fret of our G and B, and we're going to play those together and bring them up and down. And at this point, we're then going to go back to the 5th fret of our G. And to do that, you can either pull off our kind of middle finger from the 7th fret and have a little bit of a gap. Or instead of that, you can just hold on to the note a little bit longer and just go directly back to the 5th fret. Whichever way you want to do it. Phrase number 3 is going to be a nice easy one. It just goes like this. Once again, we're going to slide into the 7th fret of our D, going over to the 5th fret of our G, or 5th fret of our G and B as well if you like. And then we're going to do that again. We're then going to go back to the 7th fret of our D, going to the 5th and back to the 7th. Phrase number 4 is going to be an exact copy of phrase number 2. Together, phrases 3 and 4 sound like this. Phrase number 5 sounds like this. So we're going to be sliding a little bit higher up the neck now. We're going to go up to the 14th fret of the G. We're then going to use our ring finger to play the 15th of the B, and we're going to pull that off to the 13th. We're then going to go to the 14th of the G again, 13th of the B, and back to the 14th of the G. We're then going to do something really familiar again, 14th of the G, 15th of the B going to the 13th, and then 14th of the G, 13th of the B. And at this point, we're then going to go to the 15th fret of the B. We're going to bend it up, bring in our pinky finger to play the 15th fret of the E. We're then going to play the bent note of the 15th fret of the B, bring it down again, and go to the 13th. And that sounds like this. In context, it sounds like this. Phrase number 6 just sounds like this. So we're going to be getting really high up the neck now. We're going to be starting at the 17th fret of the B. We're then going to go to the 20th fret of the E, pulling off to the 17th. We're then going to roll our index finger back to the 17th fret of the B, and then 17th fret of the E, and back to the B again. We're then going to do something really similar again. We're going to start at the 17th fret of the B, going to the 20th fret of the E, pulling off to the 17th. We're then going to roll our index finger over to the 17th of the B, and then play the 17th of the E again. And at this point, we're then going to go back to the 20th fret of the E, and this time we're going to bend it up really high, bring it down, go to the 17th fret of the E, go to the 20th fret of the B now, and we're going to bend that up. So that was my lesson on Rocks by Primal Scream. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next lesson.